You know what I was thinking the other day? How the hell is... So this is kind of a complicated topic to try to explain. But again, it's never stopped me
That's
before.
what we're here for.
So I'm going to first give off what the point is, and then I'll give you the background. I have not
scared.
planned this out in my head.
Yeah, I'm scared.
So it's going to probably be a mess of me trying to explain it, not
Yeah.
being all over the place.
Yeah.
So here is the prompt. The prompt is, I am surprised that each of these companies, so I'm specifically speaking towards like the studios like Disney, Universal, Universal, Sony, etc., that they have been allowed to have their streaming services. Reason why I'm saying this is because I'm pretty sure, like, at least in my opinion, just based on what background knowledge I have, is it should technically fall underneath the antitrust laws of way back in the day. So here's some background. Early on with the film industry, it was very monopolized, as you can imagine. From what I understand of it, basically everything had to run through Thomas Edison's company because he had all the patents for film cameras and film projectors because he was kind of a piece of shit. So throughout the many years of this, like the whole reason the film industry is based in LA is because the companies tried to get as far away from Thomas Edison as they could because he was in New Jersey. So they thought, let's get as far away from him as possible. That way we can try to make this shit without him coming after us, or at least making it harder, because it probably took, a week to cross the country? So, yeah, that's why they all moved over to California. And also LA had better weather for constant production. So that's why the film industry is based in LA. It's literally to get away from monopoly, essentially. To kind of explain what happens with this antitrust breakup that happened, the reason you don't see Disney, Universal, Sony have movie theaters is because with this antitrust policy with the film industry, if you are a distributor, if you are a production, so studio making it, so technically a studio is anything that's a production company and a distributor, you are not allowed to have the third piece if you're either one of those, which is exhibitioner, which think movie theaters. Based on what the streaming services do, I feel like they should fall underneath being an exhibitor. They're the modern day exhibitor.
Yeah, that is a good point.
So it's like, why is Disney allowed to have Disney Plus? Because you're producing the content, you're distributing the content, and then you can choose to only have it exhibited in one place.
Yeah.
I'm sure the lawyers would argue, well, we sell it, but it's like your streaming stuff you don't sell. You don't sell Blu-rays of Mandalorian or any of the Marvel shows.
Yeah, but they do sell like a package of pay this like a subscription. You pay it monthly and you get
But it's exhibitor. You're paying a subscription for the exhibition of those.
So what's the difference between like a Blu-ray?
Well, the argument I'm saying is they're saying it with like their movies.
Yeah.
So, because for the longest, a lot of the Disney movies that were being made after being released in theaters were going on Disney Plus. So, say Multiverse of Madness. Yeah, after the 45-day window, went to Disney Plus immediately. And then that was the only place you could watch it.
Yeah.
Until later when they were putting it on sale. My point is, their lawyers probably argue, well, it's not sole. Like, you can't only watch it here. You can go and buy the Blu-ray. But that argument then doesn't apply whenever you're like, well, I want to buy The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Because you can't buy a Blu-ray of The Mandalorian. It doesn't exist. You can only watch it on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about that whole thing, but there is a difference. It's like MTV producing their own.
Well, the TV is a little different because I don't know the exact rules behind it. But typically when they produce certain TV things, you can still go in between shit. Like there's a lot of times where like a NBC can make a show, but it gets shown on I think they're Paramount Universal or Paramount NBC. Yeah, Paramount. I freaking forgot all these conglomerates at this point. But whoever owns NBC, they used to, when they would make a show, they would sometimes make shows and then lease it to say Fox.
Yeah, but they don't have to lease it. Like BT, I guess they produce their own movies.
So again, this still goes to my point with, so they could maybe get away with it, say with their shows they're producing. but with their films,
Yeah.
I still feel like streaming services are an exhibitor, and you shouldn't.
So-
like, even if you are releasing home video of your movies or whatever, you should still not have the right to own a movie theater.
What is the difference? What is an exhibitor? What does that mean?
Let me find a good definition. But exhibitor, basically, whenever you're talking about like the legal terms for different parts of the pipeline for film,
Yeah.
you have your producer, which is who produces the film, who makes the film. The distributor is the person who then distributes it to the exhibitors, and the exhibitors are basically who shows the product.
Okay.
Think of it, I guess, like if you make a product, so you make shoes, then you go through a distributor, or you may be the distributor to have it sent to stores, and then the stores are the exhibitors selling your shoes.
Okay. It seems like this only happens in movies, like in the movie
Yes,
industry.
because there was such a bad monopoly issue back in the day.
Okay.
Like it was literally like Edison's company owned all the rights essentially,
Okay.
or was involved to some level. And then even after that, whenever they broke up his trust, so I think there should be two big antitrust things. The one that broke up Edison's shit, and then, but that also had to do with patent shit.
Yeah.
And then there was a later one where United Artists, MGM, I can't remember all the big companies back then, Warner Brothers, they all owned their own movie theaters. They all owned exclusive directors, exclusive actors. Basically, they then got broken up because monopoly, because they were controlling the entire pipeline, and it basically was crushing all competition. And I believe it was during Roosevelt's administration that broke that up.
So maybe you are right. Maybe it does count as an exhibitor, but it's not enforced because it doesn't need to be.
Well, it's also not enforced because, Disney's the biggest one. They lobby a lot, like a lot. Like the whole reason open domain, the reason that nothing's been added since whatever 1925 is because of Disney.
Yeah.
They keep lobbying to have the copyright laws extended every single time it comes up.
Yeah.
Because they call it the Mickey law at this point, where anytime because based on whenever the creator dies, there's a certain amount of years that the family or entity who owns it from there will own the copyright, and then it's supposed to go into the open domain. Well, the problem is, Disney passed a while ago,
Yeah.
and every time they get close to whatever amount of years, Disney lobbies like crazy for Congress to then push through bills to have that copyright length extended. So it used to be 50 years, then it became 75 years. I think it's 100 years now.
But yeah, that is a good point though about it, and I can see that being like they're counted as exhibitors, but I can see why it's not enforced. I guess because why does it need to be enforced?
Because I think it still, to some extent, kind of stifles competition. So think of like Netflix. Netflix itself was an exhibitor for the longest. Whenever there was literally no other streaming services except for maybe Hulu.
Yeah.
That's how they were able to build the businesses, but they became a new model for being an exhibitor. So then once all of a sudden all these other the studios that were actually making it made streaming services, we've seen what's happened to Netflix over the last 6 months. Their stocks plummeted.
I mean, I wouldn't say plummeted. They just introduced
It's like half.
But it introduced the
Went
competition.
from 400 to 200.
No, but competition was introduced. They were literally controlling the market at one point. Like they were the
I was going to
ones.
say that there needed to be more exhibitors, but any chance of that happening got crushed because all the major companies that are the studios that are producing and distributing the product then also became the exhibitors in this digital space.
Yeah.
They didn't give the chance for more Netflix competitors to build up.
Yeah.
Because you got to think then there's
I guess,
Amazon.
That's
But then
true.
now that they're a distributor, I don't think that they should be able to. I mean, since they're also an exhibitor, I don't think they should have the rights to be a distributor and a producer too.
Yeah.
But the reason they get around with it's because the laws haven't been structured because tech gets away with shit until it's too late.
Yeah.
It's kind of how it's been. It's just like, oh, all the laws and shit. Well, this is digital, so your laws don't apply.
Well, I guess if you think about it, the reason that law was made was because there was such a monopoly in the industry. Nowadays, I don't think it's as bad a monopoly to where
It's more. We're good. Well, then what happened after that is things got broken up, but we're going back into a monopoly again.
Like how?
So think about how there used to be, so after that ended up being 6 to 8 studios. So you'd have like your big 3 or big 4, and then you'd have like your, what they call like the small 3, where it would be like, I think it was Paramount, Universal Artists, and something else. And they were kind of like the smaller studios. And then over time, they've been purchased by these big corporations like AT&T, a phone telecommunications company buying Warner Brothers. Disney's kind of the only exception where there's still the same company.
But there are
MGM, I think, was purchased at one point or had some level of interaction with Warner Brothers where they kind of fused together. And then Amazon bought the MGM rights. But basically, now we're down to like 4 major studios.
I guess
4 or 5.
There's a good comparison with like shoe companies, I feel like, with movies.
Yeah, there's 2.
Well, there's not 2. There's Adidas, there's Nike, there's Reebok, there's New Balance. Like there's only probably like 5 or 6 big ones. And they all can have their own
But
stores.
I don't think that's a good thing. I think there needs to be more competition. But here's the problem is if you get to the point where, say you get rid of the whole exhibitor thing, where Disney, Sony / Columbia, Universal, Paramount can own their own movie theaters, you're losing all of the movie theater companies because they're not going to be able to get the rights that they need to for the films that make them money because of those other.
Yeah, for sure.
So instead of having this whole entire space having 50 companies, it's going to go to only being 5 companies.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's less competition. That's more monopoly.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think they will get rid of that though. But
They're trying.
they're trying to get rid.
And Disney's been lobbying like crazy.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's gonna happen. Yeah, never say never though.
Dog, this is a corporate state.
Yeah, never say never.
It's not we the people. It's we the corporations that are Delaware-based corporations.
Yeah. But yeah, bring a good point. It's a good point.
I'm just saying. Because we didn't have the chance for more competitors than Netflix to be built. Because at some point, with Netflix being what it was, at some point, typically, that company will do, the monopoly company will do things that a competitor will start getting consumers based on people not wanting to fuck with that company. And then they slowly build up and build up. So I guess an example would be in the CPU. So the CPU industry where it comes to, it used to be Intel just had a fucking chokehold. And then AMD was around. So what they did is they became like more of the budget one. So they're like, okay, for price to performance, you go with AMD. Intel, you go, that's the big boy. And then over time, they were able to take advantage of the fact that when a corporation becomes too big, it starts resting on its laurels. It stops pushing anything. So then AMD started pushing hard whenever they launched the Ryzen series of CPUs, where the performance was actually going above Intel's. Intel then had to like, oh shit, we actually have to go further with our products. And now AMD honestly has better performance than Intel does.
Yeah.
And they're taking large pieces of their consumer base. So that could have happened with like a Netflix competitor, but it didn't get to happen because all of the major corporations came in and said, nah, we're holding all our rights. Fuck y'all.
Yeah.
Monopolies.
Monopolies. Yeah, that brings a good point. I try to be the devil's advocate, but yeah, I agree.
Okay, I never could tell with you because you're so pro corporation over here.
Yeah, I was just trying to like, think it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I mean, it does make a lot of sense that they are exhibitors with the streaming services. It's basically just a theater, but
Yeah, it's a digital theater.
Yeah, digital theater.
And you can choose to only show Disney's shit on Disney Plus, not lease off your shit. Granted, apparently they're supposed to be doing that now.
Really? Getting other people to lease? Yeah.
Well, no, they're talking about
Leasing their stuff. Yeah. Which they only doing that because they don't see any profit, or they're not seeing about a profit. So that's probably also why they haven't been enforced, because they're realizing, I mean, they don't need to enforce this because.
Well, here's the thing. You kind of screw yourself by being the producer in this case and the distributor.
Why?
Because you're going to have to spend $40 million per episode on something. I'm being hyperbolic.
Wait, they're trying to release the shows on.
Well, you know what I'm saying. It becomes a certain part of economics where if you're spending $300 million to make a movie,
yeah,
and then you're putting on a streaming service where you only get X amount of dollars a month,
yeah,
you may hit a point where it's like, okay, are we really making that much more profit if we just put this in theaters and then sell it for $30 for a 4K Blu-ray?
Yeah.